All right, another episode of the RSL Random Fan Podcast. Your host, Brant Goebel, joined by Favian Renkel. And he's from pretty much everywhere. What are you doing right now? I noticed Forbes, Sports Illustrated,
Yeah,
Muck Rack. You
yeah,
started a magazine. How's that going? I don't know if it's
yeah,
went
yeah.
very far. So, what are you doing right now?
Honestly, this is kind of crazy. Yeah, thank you for having me on. I'm from everywhere and I've been everywhere, right? No, now I'm at Kickbase MLS, which is the new home of MLS Fantasy. This is kind of like a passion project for me because I always felt like coming from the fantasy football universe that MLS fantasy could be a great vehicle to grow the game and grow the league. So I'm super excited to be on this side because I always had conversations with a buddy of mine, Justin, who's an dot com writer, where possibly could have MLS fantasy could possibly be the next big thing to kind of move this league forward into the American kind of sports zeitgeist. And I truly felt that conversation was it rang true to me. So when this opportunity arose to kind of be the head of content here at Kickbase MLS, I was like, this is like a dream job because 100% this could be something that I see myself working into one day. So yeah, I've been everywhere, but that's where I'm at right now. My magazine is going well. We have a whole bunch of photographers all over the country. I haven't made a physical copy just yet, so it's just a digital magazine right now. I can't wait to get to that point where fantasy MLS is the biggest thing in the world, and I can admit now make Footwork magazines physical. So I'm excited to kind of um, go along that too.
Okay, well, let's take a quick step back. I want to talk about all that stuff, but I do want to find out more about you. And one of the questions that I ask everybody, is, are you a soccer fan? And I'm always curious to see what the answer is.
You imagine if I just said no and all right, interview over. No, I'm just kidding.
I'm waiting for that. We ask Kurt Schmid, the
Yeah.
soccer director there at, we'll ask Jason Christ, but he's the main guy that brings in the players at Real Salt Lake, and his answer was really interesting because of his job, and he's constantly looking at players every time he watches a game. He's thinking, oh, how would they fit into RSL? How would they fit into his team? So it's kind of changed his appreciation of the sport. So I'm always curious, someone that's so immersed in it day in, day out, hustling to create a presence and a market for yourself, if that changes how you approach the sport. Do you get tired of it?
Um, I am a big soccer fan. I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm a huge soccer fan. But I have a cheat code, right? Like my parents are from a small country called Uruguay, so soccer kind of runs through our blood. We have a joke that we say within Uruguayans is that we are great at exporting beef and soccer players because that's all we do, you know. So for me, soccer's been my number one sport that I've loved to watch since I was a young kid. I played soccer when I was a kid, but then I ended up playing American football when I was in high school. So it's just a couple of, different things. I'm a bigger guy, so I was never small enough to play soccer in high school. So that's kind of where I'm like, okay, I have to play American football. Put me on the line, coach, you know? But I am a huge soccer fan. I changed the way I watch it a bit now, because I'm always commenting on the game. I'm always trying to find a way where, if there is a live soccer game somewhere in my vicinity, I'm going to that game to kind of create content or talk to players or find a way where I can amplify this match as much as I can. Um, so I'm not gonna lie to you and say I watch a lot of foreign soccer games. That's a little tough for me. Watching a lot of EPL or Champions League is something that I don't do too much of, but I do love international soccer. That's somewhere where I could just fully fan out. I don't know if I can though, because with the World Cup draw, I was hired by the Athletic to kind of write some blurbs for them, and I had to be on my A game again now for international soccer. So hopefully I can find an outlet where I could, watch the game as a fan. But that's getting tougher and tougher, and I'm very grateful for it at the same time.
One of the things I love about soccer, I told you before we got started that, and everybody knows that listens to our podcast knows that I came to soccer later. I was like my 30s before soccer became a passion for me. Obviously, I never played it. But one of the things that I found really intriguing about soccer is that you could have kind of like multiple teams. And I'm just
Mm.
curious because there's so many leagues, it's so ubiquitous across the United States, across the world, that often people have a few teams that they follow. I was just curious, do you have a team that you follow specifically and around the world or in the United States?
Yeah, look, I grew up as a San Jose Earthquake fan. So I'm not gonna lie. I mean, I have to be a journalist and I have to be non-biased, but um, let me just say this: when I interviewed Chris Wondolowski for the first time, my heart dropped. So it was something where Wondolowski was always a huge idol of mine as growing up, and I feel like, yeah, the San Jose Earthquakes for me are my team. Um, but as a journalist, you kind of have to remove your bias and be able to kind of step back. Seeing how the sausage was made a bit, changes your perspective as well. You start to fall in love with these clubs that have well-run organizations from top to bottom. A team that has really kind of fascinated me was the Seattle Sounders. I think the Seattle Sounders and their fan base truly love that club just as much. I mean, maybe not now because the Seahawks won the Super Bowl, but it felt like at some times that the Seattle Sounders are respected in Seattle as much as the Seahawks. So or the Mariners, right? So it's something where, yeah, I start to fall in love with clubs and fan bases around the league that I go and experience. But I'm just a huge fan of soccer in America, so I truly like all the teams, and when Leagues Cup comes around, I think that's kind of a fun way to kind of show that you love the MLS in a way. So, but also like when it's the Club World Cup, I was rooting for the teams that weren't the European teams either. So I was rooting for the MLS teams and the Brazilian teams too, because I always like underdog stories too.
Yeah, I love the Club World Cup. It was CONCACAF Champions League. Now it's the
Yeah.
Champions Cup, and I was at the game when RSL was in the final against Monterrey in 2011, and it is so far it's the pinnacle of my soccer fandom. Nothing has come close to the feeling and the electricity was in the stadium that game, and RSL was so close to being the first MLS club to win that tournament. I guess
Right.
the Galaxy did in a different form way
Yeah, different
earlier,
format. Yeah.
different format, but generally how it's set up now, RSL came incredibly close, and then Seattle, who is kind of a rival, pretty much a rival for us. They don't win when they come to RSL anymore, come to Salt Lake, but if it's the playoffs and it counts, they seem to have our number. But they were, I think, weren't they the first team to win it? And that was kind of like,
Yeah, like in this format, yeah.
yeah. So that's exciting. So that's interesting that you are kind of like a Major League Soccer stan, or is it just the whole soccer universe in the United States?
It's funny. Before I got this job with MLS Fantasy, I couldn't say it, but I guess I am a MLS stan, right? Yeah, my friends joke. They're like, "Dude, watch some European ball for once, man. Like, watch something else." And I'm like, "I can't, dude. This is my league, so I need to help this one grow."
Well, that's fantastic because there's not enough. I found that there's so many people that love to hate on Major League Soccer,
Hmm.
and a lot of them I don't even think they watch. There was a comment I saw a comment today. Someone was going after Stu Holden for suggesting that Xavier Gozo might be someone to bring in for the U.S. men's national
Oh
team.
yeah, I saw that. Yeah,
Yeah, they're like, hey, oh, he had a meh U20. Well, you didn't watch the U20 because he had some pretty spectacular play there. And
yeah,
second, he only played 3 or 4 games with RSL. Obviously, tell me you don't watch Real Salt Lake without telling me you don't watch Real Salt Lake because
right,
Xavier
right.
Gozo was pretty much the offense all of last season and the go-to guy for the team at 18 years old. So I think it's interesting that dynamic of soccer fans wanting to grow the game in the United States and then not supporting the game in the United States.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an interesting dynamic because I see it every single day now that I'm at Kickbase, where you're trying your hardest to kind of amplify the league and truly show what's good about this league. But then at the same time, you get big publications. I don't want to name any names, but Sun having 4 assists is like, oh, this shows the quality of the league. It's just like, I mean, Sun does something that has never been done in MLS more than once, right? Messi was the only person that's done it too. And then Yeah, it's just interesting. I mean, those are both world class players, like very world class. So, it's like the chicken or the egg, right? Like it's gonna take time, but yeah, there's a lot of critics about MLS, and it almost seems like whenever there's a great performance in MLS, it's because it's MLS, like that's tough too.
Yeah, who'd they play, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. But then let's not lie and say like Puebla versus Querétaro and Liga MX is gonna be some like crazy Champions League level game, right? Like there's bad teams in every league, and that's what people seem to forget when they're hating on MLS.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I was reading about you. I thought it was interesting. How did you come into what you're doing now? How did you end up? It sounded like you kind of started in Japan.
Yeah.
And how did you get there? How did that all come about? Um, I saw that you were into selling plumbing supplies.
Yeah, that's funny,
I
man.
come out of construction myself,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
but I thought that was really fascinating. How did you create this situation where you're at now for yourself?
Yeah, I hope you have time, man. This is like my whole life story right now. So, yeah, I mean,
Oh, yeah, we got all the time you want.
I met this beautiful girl who is now the mother of my son, my ex-wife, but she but put yourself back in there, and we had a kid and she wanted to have it in Japan, so I moved to Japan. But I just started a pod, or I was on a podcast called Tectonic Takes, which is the San Jose Earthquakes podcast. And I was on one or two episodes. We had our first two episodes, and after that, we moved to Japan to have our son. And it was during COVID, so it was kind of a weird time. I eventually kept on doing the podcast, and then I started interviewing players. And then the San Jose Earthquakes hired Matias Almeida as their coach. And by that time, I was kind of, well known in the San Jose Earthquakes world. So I was known as a bilingual kind of podcaster, right? So when Matias Almeida came in, he spoke Spanish, right? And there wasn't too many reporters in San Jose that were bilingual. So the San Jose Earthquakes reached out to me, and they reached out asking me if I can be on the pressers for them, so I can give them some more translations, and because Matias Almeida is Argentinian and my family's from Uruguay, we speak a very similar Spanish, right? So they invited me to kind of translate him in a way because he was a very romantic type of coach. He would kind of romanticize the game in a way where if you're just Google translating it, it does not make sense. So you needed someone there. So I'm very fortunate that the San Jose Earthquakes kind of reached out to me and asked me to be on press conferences. And then I was, yeah, in Japan on press conferences at 2 or 3 in the morning, being a new dad. And then you would wake up at 5, feed the baby, and then start your regular 9 to 5 work day, right? So it was kind of crazy. And then come back home, go on a podcast or make a podcast and edit and make graphics and everything. And it was a lot of fun, man. That's kind of how I started my way. And then becoming a journalist, at least I was offered a spot by a very famous writer called named Robert Jonas. He was, if I'm not mistaken, he was a writer for MLS a long time ago. And then he was on SB Nation for the San Jose Earthquakes, Centerline Soccer, which was a famous publication for them. And he asked me to kind of take over for him. So I started writing for SB Nation. And unfortunately, they eventually kind of went under because a lot of independent media, unfortunately, in MLS don't make it. And then I kind of, kept on going and going and going. I eventually came back from Japan, and then I started I worked in plumbing. This is where the plumbing comes before I left to Japan. And then I got an offer to come back to work in plumbing again. So I came back from Japan because it was a great offer to kind of work my regular 9 to 5 selling plumbing. So if you have any questions about luxury plumbing, let me know. I always joke like I have a lot of friends in New York now because I live in New York that don't know anything about plumbing. So I'm like, I'm kind of the blue collar guy now. Like all of a sudden, because I sold all these things, I know how to fix them and things. So it's just funny that that happens. But yeah, I worked in plumbing. I came back and I was working a normal 9 to 5. Luckily, it was a family business, not of mine, but a close friend of mine. So they treated me like family. And I was able to kind of do two things at the same time. I was able to be a journalist, work for publications like Sports Illustrated and 90 Minute after my 9 to 5, right? So I was really lucky that Leagues Cup and all these outlets understood that, hey, I need to work a regular 9 to 5. Let me do the soccer stuff after. So I worked, basically two full-time gigs for maybe 3 to 4 years, and then that kind of landed me here where I'm at Kickbase MLS, where soccer's my full time now. It was a little bittersweet leaving the plumbing. You know how that could be, right? But they were like, Favi's graduating. Like Favi finally made it to the mainstream in a way. So they threw me a party and stuff, and yeah, it makes me sad to think, I left that blue collar job. You know how it is. It's family, and everybody cares about each other. So yeah, that's funny that you say you're from construction because you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I'm actually a drywall finisher back in the day.
Yeah.
But so do you still get your discount when you go in, get your stuff?
Yeah, exactly. I better get that discount. I'm gonna say, hey, put those zeros back. Like, what are you doing?
So, what are your thoughts on the democratization of journalism and the state of journalism
Ooh.
in the United States right now? Because I find it fascinating that, an idiot like me and our little podcast, we end up, we in the press and doing stuff with our club we follow, Real Salt Lake, and 5, 10 years ago, that just wasn't the case. And some of that's great for us, but on the other side, it's like, you know, journalism is just kind of changing and trying to find its way back to profitability and all kinds of things and respectability. Maybe it hasn't lost respectability, but there's some challenges in journalism. What are your thoughts on the opportunities that are there and how it's changing?
Yeah, look, tough question. Because I started the same way as you guys, to be honest, right? Like I was invited as a podcaster to ask questions. Um, I actually think that's kind of in the blueprint of MLS media now. Like that was something that maybe wasn't there 10 years ago, but nowadays you have a ton of podcasts around the league where they do a great job covering the team. Now, it's tough because you have a bias, right? But there's a certain place where that can survive, right? If you're local, let's say your sports media for that team, if you have enough of both, I think there's a good kind of place for everything. So you need to make sure that a team has a good journalist that's not as biased, right? Like I look at a team like Inter Miami, for example, they have a lot of homers, right? I mean, they are one of the best teams in MLS, but they also have some very critical people of their team too. Like, for example, shout out to Franco Panicio. He's pretty critical of their team when he needs to be, right? And I think that's kind of like the world that there needs to be. There needs to be a good and an evil, right? And I hate to say like in that term, but like there needs to be kind of a spectrum of this. And I think podcasters and land in a way where yes, they are a little biased, but they could work for some markets, right? And I think MLS is a market where grassroots is where this grows and truly where you get more fans because we're not in the mainstream of media like almost ever, right? So I think journalism is changing. I think on this side at least, if you're a journalist, you're gonna have to need to, bring something else to the table. Yes, you can write really well, but you have to be able to make content. You have to be able to get your work out to the world to kind of stand out from the rest. And that can be maybe be a podcaster, right? Come onto a show and offer that insight into the podcast, which is great. Or let's say you can make content where you're making short form versions of your articles in a way that's digestible to the younger generations, right? So there is ways you can kind of make your mark in journalism, but to say it's not changing is kind of crazy at this point.
Yeah, and that's one of the things, how things change. What I found is that doing the podcast has made me less biased in a way that like watching the game in the press box where you're not supposed to have any bias, right?
Yeah.
That's the way I love to watch the game, nice and quiet.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
I've had season tickets with RSL since 2008. I've been around a long time, and I've been rowdy. I'm not rowdy anymore, so just that experience of watching the game and enjoying it and is in a different way has been fascinating. But it is kind of interesting that there is that's kind of the fight there between being journalists and being fans,
Right.
and being a podcast versus being someone that's trying to add to add to the environment in a positive way for Major League Soccer across the board.
Yeah, and yeah, you're actually right because I was a podcaster, right? I was just a fan, and then eventually when I was in the boxes and in the conferences, you kind of gotta tone it down. You gotta separate yourself, and that's funny that you bring that up because yeah, I had to do that.
Well, tell me about what is Kickbase? I'm an old guy. I
Yeah.
always tell people I'm like 2 weeks too old for video games. I just barely missed that whole thing. But what is fantasy soccer? What is Kickbase, and what is it trying to create and do for Major League Soccer?
Yeah, so Kickbase is the new home of MLS fantasy. So if you've ever played fantasy football, if you ever played fantasy soccer, this is that for MLS. And I really actually like it because it's an app. Nowadays everything's on an app where before it was, the old MLS fantasy product didn't have an app, so it was a little bit older school. A lot of people liked it because it was a desktop and it was something that felt familiar to them because it's been around for a long time. I want to say I saw some ads of they showed me some ads with Landon Donovan and Andrew Wiebe when he was like 18 years old, so it's really cool to see where MLS fantasy has gone to now. But yeah, it is the MLS fantasy of the future in my opinion, and it's a lot of fun. I'll probably go in more in depth to it, but the biggest thing is it has 100 actions. So you're watching your phone like you would for fantasy football, where every single pass or every single cross, there is a point value to it. So you're going up head to head against your friends and family, watching the game, seeing your players perform better than your friends.
Now, is this something you go in and you are playing against everyone in the United States, or is it breaking down with teams, or like
Yeah,
obviously I haven't done it, but
yeah,
like so how would you convince me to play it
yeah. Look,
and
there's two modes.
participate?
Yeah, there's two modes. There's an arena mode, which is your regular fantasy football where you play against your friends and your family. So you would set up a lineup to go up against, I think it's up to 16 people in your league. So you can go ahead and invite your friends and play head to head. So actually, we're having a great time in the office where we're up against all each other and talking smack, doing all of that. And then, excuse me, there's another mode called Rush where you play up against everybody in the United States. You play since Kickbase is actually the number one fantasy provider for Bundesliga. You go up against a lot of German guys too that are getting into MLS. So yeah, there's two modes. So you can definitely play up with everybody. You can play with your friends, but then we also have another one where it's called a club challenge, where you play with your fan base against other fan bases and see who has the strongest fan base in the app too.
What do you win? Just
Yeah,
bragging rights, or is this something you got to
yeah.
kick in some cash and you get something back, or
Yeah, yeah.
yeah?
It's 100% free to play. You don't have to pay anything to play the app. There is certain things that if you wanted to upgrade your account, you could. But there are prizes. So, for example, if you get first place in one of these challenges, you get $100. There's in your arena league, so like with your friends, I know a lot of people have buy-in leagues. So just like fantasy football, where you can do, $50 to $100 per person, and then the winner takes the pot. But that's all like within friendship. That's nothing on the app. There's no like input to pay for this league in this app. So that would just be like, I'll buy you lunch with your friends and things like that. But if you like, for example, next week we're having a classic football shirts collaboration, and the winner wins a MLS jersey of their liking. And then we have another Discord challenge, which is another MLS jersey of their liking or MLS gift cards. But yeah, there's tons of things to win, honestly.
That sounds fascinating. It's kind of like there's an old joke there, like first place you win a San Jose kit, and second place you get two San Jose kits, something like
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Should sign me up for that one. I want that one.
that. Okay, so and then a lot of people think um, soccer is the only sport I really watch now, but
Yeah.
so I don't play fantasy football. But I noticed that there's a lot of people saying, hey, you know what, fantasy football is ruining the experience in a way, because then people are just aren't watching their teams, they're just watching the game.
Mm.
They're looking for the actions in the game. Are you worried
Yeah.
about that, or is this something that you want to get to that point where people are saying, "Hey,
Yeah.
you know what? Kickbase is ruining soccer."
Yeah. You know what? If Kickbase ever gets to that point, man, I'll fly everybody out to the headquarters and we're having a big party, you know. But no, 100% I think I'm the same way with fantasy football. I'm not gonna lie to you. When it's the playoffs in football, I do not watch because fantasy football is over, right? So, um, what's kind of a secret about Kickbase, and this is gonna come up later in the year, but our games are still going through the playoffs, so you kind of still have to watch every single game, which is a little different to other fantasy platforms where they finish before the playoffs. Ours are gonna have a playoff mode and everything. So no, I don't think we're gonna ever get to that point. I think what's really cool about Kickbase is that you can see the live kind of points get updated. So let's say for Gozo, if Gozo has a cross and it connects with another RSL player, you get the points within 10 seconds because the stats are backed by Opta. So that's really cool. That means I usually have my phone open at the same time I was watching the game, just like I would fantasy football, right? So it's a different experience. It's definitely more of a second screen. But for example, a guy like me who's a journalist of the league and that covers the league, can I tell you who Berg Johnson was before I put him in my lineup for SKC? I can't. You know, like I'm definitely learning a lot with this game too, because it's become a tool for me as well.
And what about other than, is there anything else, articles, other
Yeah.
things, community involved with Kickbase besides just playing fantasy soccer?
Yeah, look, actually, I'm the first employee ever for Kickbase in the United States, but this is something I've never seen done by MLS Fantasy before. Is we have a team. We have a team of guys here in New York and all across the United States. Where we were able to kind of fund a videographer, so we have some really cool content that you may have seen on TikTok. We have some articles on the app written by a good friend of mine, Justin Ruderman, who works for MLSsoccer.com. And we have like a team of sickos on the back end to make sure that the game works. And we have a Discord where we're all very, we're talking on there often. And honestly, yeah, it's something that MLS Fantasy we're going to do a lot more too. We have a partnership with MLS, so if you've ever seen the MLS Fantasy accounts, we're hoping to kind of integrate a bit into the MLS accounts like that. And 100%, we have the I don't want to say best, but a really good community outreach because we have a whole team that's already kind of in the community even before Kickbase, so we know kind of what everyone's talking about and where they're talking. So if anything, we really listen to a lot of feedback and we've changed the game on the fly already because we are all the team that's here. We're just guys who like MLS, have liked MLS for a long time. So we definitely know and hear you guys when we change things.
And what is the goal? How many people participate? Do you
Yeah.
know that, or is like what is your goal? You want billions of people, obviously, but
No, no, no. I think a great goal for us would to kind of be if I see people, if I ever go to a game and I see people maybe setting up their lineup or outside of the game, or I've been to a couple of games now where people have recognized me, but if I go to a game and people are and I hear people just talking about Kickbase, like they talk about FPL when I'm on the train, that would mean a lot to me because that means MLS is sort of in the mainstream, sports media. But even just at a game, I think the goal is if it's a tool, my dream is this. I want to work with the clubs directly so that if they kind of put on the jumbotron that like, hey, line up your favorite five RSL players, and the person who chooses the best five wins an RSL jersey at the stadium. I think that's actually a great vehicle to kind of integrate people into being even bigger RSL fans because they're going to learn new players by putting them in a lineup that maybe they never knew about them before or now they see them in a certain rank to be like, oh wait, I mean Gozo's probably, if you're an RSL fan and you don't know Gozo yet, but other guys that possibly don't get as much love you can find out how good they really are and be like, oh, you know what? I'm actually a fan of this guy too. So I think there is a world where I can see Kickbase being fully integrated with the clubs and just seeing it as an extra vehicle to add more fans into MLS. That's like a dream.
Oh, sounds fantastic. Anything anybody is doing to make Major League Soccer more influential, more important, more respected in the United States is I'm all for. Even
Right.
if, I'm an old guy. So, what are your thoughts on Major League Soccer this year? There's been some surprises, both directions, as
Yeah.
far as good teams, bad teams, surprising teams. What's surprised you so far this year?
What surprised me so far this year is honestly, I mean, the San Jose Earthquakes for one, surprising me staying at the top like that with Bruce Arena after getting rid of a guy you guys know very well, Chicho Arango, Christian Espinoza, and Josef Martinez. You lost 44 goals. I mean, where are the rest of the goals going to come from, right? And it seems like it hasn't been an issue for the San Jose Earthquakes. The Earthquakes have always been known for having a great pipeline. Take a look at Diego Luna, for example.
Yeah,
Yeah, but
yeah.
if you take a look at that, they've always had great talent coming up through their ranks. So it is interesting to see them finally, really believing in the young guys like Nico Sakiris and Bo LaRue and Reed Richards and Daniel Muni, which they're flourishing. I mean, that team is all of a sudden at the top of or in second place of the Western Conference, where I expected them to be outside of the playoff race, right? So they have shocked me. A team that I knew was going to be good and didn't shock me where they are is Nashville. I thought Nashville was going to be my pick for the Supporters Shield, and I still think they're doing a great job. They lost this last week, but I think they on paper are possibly one of the best teams in MLS this year. I didn't expect them to kind of knock out Inter Miami and CONCACAF, so I chose them to get knocked out of CONCACAF and then just win the Supporters Shield because that's all they're in. But now it's going to look a little different. Maybe they have a big chance of lifting that CONCACAF Champions Cup trophy for the first time since the Seattle Sounders, right? So those are the two teams that have really kind of caught my attention this year. Not because I was a San Jose Earthquake fan before at all. No, of course not. But because they're killing it, and then Nashville, I think, actually has a great team.
Yeah, RSL, I feel your pain there. After 24, when Chicho headed off to San
Yeah.
Jose, we lost 65 goals that season. And
Juice.
the next season last year, they did not even they struggled to replace him. Obviously, yes, last year
No.
was. This year we started off a little differently. The front office has done an amazing job bringing in some character guys and some talented folks, and RSL's doing more than they're much better than I expected.
Me
Just
too.
like
Yep.
you, in my predictions, I had them at 10th or still at 10th because the track record the last year and a half, 18 months had not been great. So I'll eat crow all year long if that's not the case, happily. But what are any on the other side? Any teams that surprise you? Like I was kind of surprised. Not that I'm a huge follower of every single team in the league. Orlando is always a team that I thought is just kind of like they should be better. They do.
Yeah.
They did pick up Brian Ojeda from RSL, who last year was probably arguably RSL's best midfielder, best
Mm.
defender last year, and he's off to Orlando. And yeah, they're just getting pummeled. They got took apart by LAFC before halftime recently.
Yeah, look, Orlando was a team I actually said was going to be one of the worst teams in the Eastern Conference because they lost Pedro Gallese, who was their heart and soul of that team, whether you like him or not. They lost, I think, I think three center backs, if I wasn't mistaken. So that defense was just going to be picked apart from the start. I actually, this is crazy. I said Oscar Pareja was going to be the first coach on the hot seat, and he's already gone, right? So this is a team that I actually saw it coming because it's so hard to replace a team that was known for their defensive identity and then they lose all their defensive players. It's like, yeah, this is a team that's gonna have a hard time this year.
And what are your thoughts on the league in general?
No.
Um, Maybe moving. What are your thoughts on the end of this season when they move? They got the little sprint season in 27 and moving to the international calendar. You
Yeah,
probably have
look,
definite thoughts on that.
yeah. I mean, see that it's kind of bittersweet to me because I felt like there was a world where MLS playing during the 4th of July, like that holiday is a big holiday for MLS because there's not many sports. We have Nathan's hot dog eating competition and then MLS later on in the day. So I actually thought that was becoming a cool holiday for soccer in America, right? Um, but this change I think is something that needed to happen because we were overpaying for players or getting them during a weird time of the year, and then we can never really adjust to win CONCACAF. Like it's something that needed to happen. I think it makes us a serious contender for the big leagues one day. It doesn't make us a contender tomorrow. I still think there's still a lot of, benchmarks we have to hit, but I think it's a change that unfortunate for the teams in like the cold, and that's including me now. But I think it's a necessary change.
Yeah, I think it's fascinating. The one stat that kind of not changed my mind because Real Salt Lake City, it can get cold. Maybe not this year, but generally most years, it's cold in January, February, even in March. LAFC found that out a couple of years ago when they came in here early
Yeah.
March, and it was orange ball, a couple inches of snow on the field. But they said that 90% of the games are already being played in the time period they're talking about, and there'll be a little break in December, January, right?
Yeah.
So, and we've seen it with RSL where we lost Andres Gomez in the summer transfer window, and it kind of tanked with some other reason, tanked the end of the 24 season, kind of went out on a bad note. So I don't know exactly where I stand on that, other than it's going to be cold. There's going to be some miserable games, but generally there is every year anyway, early on and late, especially, when you get in the playoffs, they're playing until December, the
Right.
playoffs. So, but it will be interesting how they adjust to teams like on the East Coast. And there's a lot of teams in Major League Soccer have some cold times.
Yeah. No, definitely. It's interesting to see what MLS, because MLS Cup just seemed like it loses a lot of momentum, right? Like with the international break and everything. So I'm excited to see how that kind of goes along now.
What are your thoughts on the playoff format? I know it felt like they had things going really well, one and done, and then
Yeah.
they've moved to this first round three,
Right.
best of three, so to speak. And I wondered if they did that because they were worried that maybe some of the better teams were getting knocked out be by the eighth and ninth place teams on a good day, and they were trying to make it so that those better teams have the advantage to move on. Is that what do you
Yeah,
think?
this is a little tough because I think this decision is purely on business side of things. I think every playoff team having a home game is so lucrative in a way where now every fan base that's in the playoffs gets a playoff game. So every ownership group gets ticket sales for at least one playoff game if they make it. So that's huge. I think that is something that is pretty cool, but then how do you give a bigger advantage than just a home and away, right? And I think that's the only way you do it with the best two out of three. I know it's so weird to think about it, but it does give the benefit, like you said, to the higher ranked teams, and maybe that means that teams will take MLS the regular season more seriously. The only team I've ever seen kind of not take it too seriously is Miami, and they proved it last year that they don't really need it. But I've never really seen other teams not take the MLS regular season too serious, so I never really thought that was a problem beforehand. But this kind of avoids that, right?
And any other thoughts on Major League Soccer, how it's going set up? Miami they opened their stadium. That's
Yeah.
been a incredibly long journey. NYCFC is kind of, did I see something over there that was stopped, or they're working on getting a stadium finally so they can actually play on a soccer pitch instead of what the tennis court they play on now, whatever it's called.
Yeah. Yeah, to be honest, the NYCFC Stadium in Queens is gonna come up next year. This is the last year that NYCFC is actually at the baseball stadium. So it's really cool to see all these like soccer specific stadiums kind of come about. It's a long time coming. Miami is kind of crazy that it took this long to make a stadium. Their second time in MLS, right? So it's interesting, but yeah, no, I think MLS is in the right direction. I think they need to capitalize on the post World Cup a bit more. I think there needs to be big stars coming into this league. So I think if you add in a fourth DP after this World Cup, man, that would be awesome, right? And why not? Like I think we're at a point where a fourth DP would be pretty good for every single club, right? So if you look at the Liga MX clubs, they have like 13 to 17 DPs on their roster, right? So it is interesting to kind of see. But yeah, no, I think this league is in the correct direction with their soccer specific stadiums. There's a couple of teams that are kind of in turmoil right now with the Vancouver Whitecaps. They need to get a soccer specific stadium. That's going to be probably the biggest one in the next couple of years. And then yeah, does MLS expand even more, right? Does Indy come into this realm? Does Sacramento finally come into the realm with that crazy new stadium they're building? So it's interesting. But yeah, I think MLS is on the right path. Oh, excuse me, on the right path. Um, with Don Garber leaving, right? We'll see what the new commissioner does too. That's kind of interesting.
Yeah, is he announced he's leaving? I know they were
Yeah, yeah.
talking about he was look the
Yeah, he's
the
retiring.
okay. And then what are your thoughts on that? Has Don done a great job? Good job. What are your thoughts on Don and what he's done for Major League Soccer?
Yeah, this is kind of a controversial take, but I actually think he's done a great job. I think he's done something that gets overlooked a lot. I mean, he made it so that this league is a little bit too big to fail at this point. I don't see a world where MLS goes under now. And no matter how much you want to say that he's held the league back, I think the league is here because of him. I think the league has been pushed in a way, in a direction where soccer specific stadiums are important, but also the in game, or excuse me, the live experience is important as well. I think soccer in person is such a big focal point of MLS that they kind of really amplified that in the past couple of years with opening up games into bigger stadiums and getting fitting as many people as you can, and he landed Messi, right? So I think Don Garber truly has ticked off a lot of boxes. Now, has he done everything he could have done to make this league grow as much as he can? Maybe not, but we're not in a place where we're not at a place as a league where it may not exist in a year, which it can never happen at this point now.
That's interest. I like that perspective. Like I said, I'm a little more mature than a lot of, it seems like, people in the podcast realm at the moment. But find that interesting, that dynamic where there's a lot of kids. Everybody's a kid to me, but there's a lot of young folks, early 20s and early 30s that weren't around
Yep.
before Major League Soccer. I'm the before times, before the internet, before Google, before a lot of stuff. And they don't understand that there was a long time where we did not have soccer in this country to speak of. I remember as a kid, I mean, I wasn't a huge fan when I was a kid, but I remember watching the New York Cosmos and the
Yeah.
NASL on TV and it being a little bit intrigued. And then NASL was gone. And then, had all of the stuff to build up to get Major League Soccer off the
Right.
ground again. So I think maybe there's just some folks that just have some PTSD that, like you're saying, too big to fail. But it's been here and it's been gone before. So there's that friction there between kids
Right.
that people that have never experienced something like that, and the old folks maybe saying get off my lawn. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
No, I truly think that MLS is at a place where it's in 30 different markets, which is huge. And I think the markets are all pretty good. The only ones that are really struggling are the ones in kind of like these legacy sports bubbles, right? Like, for example, the San Jose Earthquakes have a tough time breaking into that sports media landscape. The New York teams here have a hard time kind of breaking in to the New York landscape as well. So the only
Chicago.
yeah, Chicago, yeah, exactly. The only teams that are truly, I think, kind of struggling to get the attention span of their city are the original teams. So it's interesting to kind of see what do you do to kind of, you know, ignite these teams again, right? Like, does it have to be like a move? within, their like for example, Dallas is in Frisco, right? Is a move into the proper Dallas. Would that help that team, right? So it's interesting where this next commissioner is going to take it. But I truly think Dawn in the last 10 years, almost every club has been a hit, right? Like we're talking Austin, St. Louis, Nashville, right? Like every single team comes in with a soccer specific stadium and in a market that is craving a sports team or a soccer team. I think, yeah, you look at MLS in the last expansions, they've just knocked it out of the park with Atlanta, Nashville, Austin, St. Louis, all these teams, even Miami at this point, right? Where they're all successes. So you have to kind of give that to Don too.
Absolutely. I want to ask one question that comes up all the time before we jump into, if you still got time, jump into the U.S. men's national team in the World
Yeah.
Cup, which is a big story, but promotion relegation. It's, we got the USL, the upstart, and they're an interesting league if you look into them and how they're
Yeah.
set up. And I follow a small club over in England and looking at, I love promotion and relegation, but I think it's interesting that you said, talking about what Don Garber and MLS has done. People have invested so much money that like you're right, it's not going anywhere. But at the same time, how do you do something that is so beneficial for soccer elsewhere? And are you a fan of Pro Rel or personally, I think it's a great idea, but I think we are miles away from that, years away from that, and the infrastructure just isn't there for a country this huge.
Yeah, that's something we got to think about too, because I can't sit here and say I don't like Pro Rel. I think every single person that's a soccer fan likes Pro Rel or should likes Pro Rel. Like I mean, just thinking about Tottenham right now, like I haven't watched a single Prem game, right? But I know they're on the brink of going down, right? So this is something that's super interesting, and it creates a bit of a storyline for all these clubs at the bottom at the end of the year. They have something to play for, right? So no, 100%, I'm a fan of Pro Rel. But do I think it has a place in the MLS landscape? Maybe one day. Maybe one day. I think you can never say never. I could see a world. See, this is where I'm crazy, where MLS expands to like
40?
48 teams, or yeah, like a 40 number, and then you have a one and a two, right? So I could see a world where that happens, but I could actually see a world faster that it happens in MLS Next Pro. I think Next Pro is somewhere where they can really, test trial these things out. And I think we may see that happen in MLS Next Pro, similar to what the USL have going on as well. But at the same time, with Don Garber leaving, will the new commissioner possibly want to buy the USL? Like it's interesting to kind of think about all these new things that can come up where shoot, if the MLS, if MLS puts USL in their umbrella, then we're really talking. Now we're cooking with oil, right? Like we're cooking with fire here at this point. I think you can have Pro Rel almost pretty instantly with MLS Next Pro and everything. So yeah, it depends where MLS goes in the next couple of years. But if we keep expanding up to 40 or 44 or 48 or whatever number, I could see it coming. But that's going to be like 30, 40 years down the road. You can't expand that fast.
No, I wonder if they got to 40, you could have like an American League and a National League like baseball used to have. And
Right.
so you just can't. And then they at the end they could play like the old World Series used to play because they didn't National League and American League didn't play against each other. Now they do.
Oh.
And my wife's a Tottenham fan. So yeah, she's
No.
and I'm a Crawley fan and we were promoted and now we're fighting off relegation this year and it's a lot of fun, but people talk about how it creates interest, but it doesn't create a lot of diversity.
Mm.
MLS has two or three times the amount of champions since the start of Major League Soccer compared to almost every single other league in the world. I think there's only been like five or six champions in the Premier League since 1996. So there's not a your team may stay in the Premier League, but they aren't going to win it. So
Yeah, there's
where's
not a lot of
where's the
parity. Yeah.
balance?
Right. I think we're starting to see super clubs happen in MLS though. And I think that has to be with the roster regulations. it's kind of like a double-edged sword. I do like the roster regulations in MLS, but I still think there could be some tweaks to it to make it so that teams in MLS can compete with teams in the Americas a little better, right? So I still think there should be a place where you raise the spending floor. I think you need to do that first so that teams have to use every single mechanism. They can't just leave a DP slot unopened or a U22 player not used, right? So you have to use all your mechanisms first. I think that's something that MLS needs to change. And then I think it's time to kind of add some more DPs and everything. But I still like roster mechanisms in MLS because the parity is there. And I'll give it to MLS. Even though Miami is Miami and LAFC is LAFC, who knows, man? Nashville might be able to beat them this year, right? And that's something that you don't really think about in the Prem. Like, yeah, okay, like there is Cinderella stories like Leicester once every blue moon, but in MLS it could happen almost every year. So that's something I do love about MLS, and I think that's what makes MLS different too at the same time.
Yeah, I love how quirky it is.
Yeah.
Major League Soccer. Well, let's talk about the U.S. men's national team. The World Cup, it's kind of a big story. It's going to be in the United States this year. I don't know if anybody knows that, but what are your thoughts on the World Cup? It's kind of been an interesting buildup with, not to get into world politics, but all this stuff going on in the world. It's kind of putting a little bit of a damper on it, but I'm sure everyone is excited once the games kick off. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, look, I mean, the World Cup is the biggest tournament in the world. Every 4 years, the world stops and watches this sport. So, no, like very excited for this. I can't believe we're already 70 days away, right? Like it's right around the corner and still nothing's on. But we'll talk about that later. But yeah, it's kind of crazy to think that yeah, everybody's gonna stop and kind of watch the greats kind of have their last World Cup, and then you're going to see new superstars rise in this World Cup too. So no, I'm excited. I think Americans are always interested in World Cups. It's so funny how much they like soccer when this tournament comes around, and then how much they forget about soccer when the next Super Bowl's around, right? So it's going to be a great time. I'm hoping it goes as smooth as it can, but what World Cup has gone smooth, right? So it's kind of interesting in that sense where I don't think there has been a smooth World Cup in the last couple of World Cups either. So I think, yeah, I think it's going to be a great showing. I think it's going to grow soccer in the United States, but it may grow soccer in a different way that not a lot of people are expecting.
What are your thoughts on the U.S. men's national team? That has been really interesting. A little bit of days of our lives, a little bit of soap opera, I think, behind the scenes. But it's been fascinating trying to watch them come up with the best roster. Are they going to be successful? They have a kind of an easy group, knock on wood, to get out of group. But I don't know if it's everyone has been filled with a lot of confidence moving going into this. Maybe more apprehension.
Yeah, look, to be honest with the USMNT, I think we have to damper our expectations a bit. We look at this roster and kind of we have to think like, are any of these players truly world beaters? And I think there is two who may tinker with that. I think Jedi and Pulisic could be some of the best players in the world, but have they been able to put it together and be labeled as that is yet to be seen. So I think a lot of people forget that there is a lot of good players in this soccer world that unfortunately don't play for the United States. So I think a successful World Cup for the USMNT is definitely making a quarterfinal. I think if you make a quarterfinal on home soil, I think everyone's going to look at you like, man, this team gave it their all. They were able to make it out of the group and win two matches in the knockout stages. This is a crazy, crazy moment. But I think the people saying semifinal, final, or lifting it are completely, thinking something else, right? So I think the best case scenario is a quarterfinal, but I would be happy with the round of 16, So, and good teams lose in normal World Cups round of 16s. Like that's very, very honorable, right? So I think the USMNT needs to look directly inside of them and think, okay, I don't know, like this is the golden generation technically, right? Is it? Like Gio Reyna really never panned out. Pulisic plays well for his club, but hasn't scored for 2 years for his country, right? So it's something where I think it's possible to make a quarterfinal, but this team has to do a lot of digging before the World Cup, that's for sure.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. These might be the best group of players that have come through the United States and through the U.S. men's national team, but they seem light years away from being the best team.
Right,
And
right.
I don't know what they're missing. Being a get off my lawn type of guy. It looks like some maybe there's too much success for some of these
Yeah.
players. Like when in previous iterations, I remember I think about 2 or 3 cycles ago when Kyle Beckerman was it 12? I think it was 2012, where it was some gritty MLS type players that were trying to prove themselves that kind of carried the team.
Yeah.
And is there they have too much success, and so it's they've reached the pinnacle. They're playing in Europe, and this transfer to playing for the national team just doesn't have the weight that it used to. Or am I just kind of like reading too much into it? I mean, it just there's something that they haven't figured out. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, to me, I think I hate to say this. I really hate to say this, but they need a little because I'm gonna say it, it's the same thing that everyone's saying, and they're calling them crazy for it. But they need a little more grit. They need a little bit more what Diego Luna has, and I hate to say it, but when Pulisic lost 5-2 and he did that interview on the pitch with TNT or whoever was broadcasting, he was kind of holding his arm in a certain way, and it was like, man, this is the leader of this group. Like he's like, oh well, we'll try next week. Like I know it's a friendly. I know you shouldn't look too much into it, but I never saw Pulisic as the leadership type in this group. I think unfortunately, he's been coined that because he was the star boy for this team forever. I just think, this team could use a leader like a Clint Dempsey at this point. They need a veteran presence in this locker room. And I know people don't want me to say this, but I think Tim Ream has to be there because he's the only veteran on the team, right? Like this team doesn't have any veterans. It needs more leadership. It needs a bit of more pride for playing for this team. And a lot of these guys, like you said, they played in Europe their whole career. So I don't want to say they're too distant from their American side, but you do need some guys kind of pushing that envelope. And I think Diego Luna, while being not the best technical player for the United States men's national team, kind of brings that in a way where he's gonna fight for this shirt. He chose this shirt over Mexico, right? So this is something that's why I kind of like the dual nationals personally, right? Because they chose the USA over their other teams, and that kind of goes for like Pepe too, I think, or Balogun too. I think I need those guys to step up and be a little more vocal. Maybe they don't feel like they can be in sometimes too.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. I think you hit the nail on the head, or you're just agreeing with me, kind of, and I appreciate that because that's kind of what I'm seeing. Is like, and maybe this is the World Cup, and maybe this is the experience that they need that will catapult some of these guys into say, hey, this is really important because I do agree. I think they're just missing that grit. They're missing the players because, like I said, you had your Landon Donovan who would go and play at Everton, but there was a lot of U.S. men's national team players that played in MLS and maybe played in some of the lower leagues, and they were always trying to get to that next level, trying to get to Europe where Pulisic and a lot of these players have spent their whole careers, and they had constantly had that drive. And I'm wondering, these other players, these younger players that have had this success, just don't have that yet. Not that they can't get to it, but I think that's the one. It's intangibles they're missing.
Take a look at Clint Dempsey's upbringing. Take a look how he made it to being a professional baller, right? It's completely different from Pulisic and unfortunately Weah, right? Like these guys, they were affluent, So it's like, I don't know if that's the grit that's missing, right? Like they've never had to like really, like fight tooth and nail like a Clint Dempsey, but Diego Luna kind of, is that, like his parents, like I know his upbringing because I'm from the Bay Area, from where I think I grew up like 20 minutes from where he grew up. And now that it is affluent, but before when he was growing up, it probably wasn't, right? So there's these little things these intangibles that are really hard to replicate. And I think we may be on the same kind of branch thinking of what's missing from this team is that hunger, it's that want and to to be there, in my opinion. I kind of see Pulisic maybe, on the pitch, really trying to do it, really trying to be the hero for this team. But his body language to me and everything after the game, I just don't see a leader in him too much. I think I need one of the other guys to step up and kind of be the local vocal leader.
Well, I think, and you point out Tim Ream, if he's the only veteran, maybe that's, these guys need to become veterans and have
Yeah,
these experiences. And maybe everybody was focusing on this cycle being the one for for this golden generation, but maybe it's the next one.
right.
Maybe it's, what they learn here, and because they'll be around for the next one too, probably a lot of these players. So maybe this is exactly whether they have a great experience or they finish in the quarterfinals, semifinals, or, you know, get grouped horrifically,
Okay.
that maybe that's what they need. But we'll find out, and that's the beauty of the game. It's like Major League Soccer. It doesn't matter what your record is. Any team can be any team
Yeah.
every week. So what are your predictions? And do you have any surprises or expectations for the World Cup that you've been thinking about?
Yeah, look, I've been saying this on all the podcasts, but I think Argentina is going to go back to back. I truly think Argentina knows how to break down games. They know how to chop things up. I saw them play in Copa America against some of the best teams in the world, and they were just being so annoying, falling after every time, getting a foul. Rodrigo de Paul is the best in the world at that. Used to be Neymar, but now it's Rodrigo de Paul. They just find a way to be annoying, and they chop at guys, and they know what to do. They know who to get the ball to. And I think Messi is still playing on a level where he could still do it on the biggest stage. I think Messi finds a different, gear when he plays for Argentina. I mean, he had a crazy assist in the friendlies and almost scored a goal, if I'm not mistaken. So he definitely still has it for Argentina. And I think they'll just find a way to kind of be annoying, and they're used to this heat, which is a big deal to the European teams. I think Argentina just finds a way to kind of chop games up, get set pieces, win with those set pieces, just like they did in Qatar.
And the other thing too is that a lot of the players when they come to Major League Soccer just have no concept of is travel. I mean, the
Right.
World Cup will be a little bit different, but there will wherever they're stationed, there's a good chance they'll be traveling a lot more or a farther distance not than they would normally in their in their club
Right.
experience because that can be a challenge. And also, altitude. I don't know where all the games are being played, but it seems like those factors could come into and affect some games as well.
No, definitely, especially in Mexico, right? Mexico City is pretty high up there, and
It's like
Monterrey too.
8,000 feet.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
thought I thought Salt Lake was high when we had I think Club America came in and played RSL in the Champions League, and they're like, "Oh, I guess you guys beat us because Salt Lake's like 4,500 feet and Mexico's over 8.
yeah.
Mexico City's over 8." So yeah, they got
That's
so.
crazy.
Any countries do you think if Argentina is going to repeat? Do you think it's a repeat of the final? Is it with that France and Argentina?
Yeah, I see France as a powerhouse again, and maybe they beat Argentina, honestly. Mbappe is definitely gonna be looking for that goal scoring record of this World Cup. I think a lot of people are gonna be talking about Lamine and what he's gonna mean to this World Cup, but I think Mbappe is gonna be like, hey, y'all forgot about me, like this is my prime World Cup, and I'm already breaking history. So yeah, I think France is still gonna be that powerhouse. Yeah, and to think like that's not, they also have other players, like Dembele coming off of Ballon d'Or. They have a lot of players, and I think yeah, France is a powerhouse. Germany, I don't think is going to do too well. I think they're still missing some things. It's always coming home for England, right?
I don't know. I've seen some stuff. Toikel, I don't. I think England is going through a lot of the same consternation as the United States is. Are they
That's
going to
right.
figure it out? So
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. But I
When
but I
then,
think like Uruguay is a team that always could be a dark horse in the World Cup. No bias here. No, I think they always play up to the competition, but they always play down to the competition. So they could be a spoiler this World Cup, just how like Morocco was, and then Uruguay in the past and Colombia in the past. So I still think that these teams that are spoilers, historically, are still going to be spoilers this World Cup.
And there's always an African nation that comes out of nowhere that
Yeah.
was it Gabon or which the
Uh,
U.S. men's national team always ran into the same country,
oh,
the
Ghana,
Africa
Ghana.
Ghana. There, yeah,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
was
yeah.
close. Uh, and then yeah, so I think that's really fascinating. I had another question: Messi or Ronaldo?
Oh, Messi for me. Yeah, it has to be
Messi.
Messi. He came to
Oh,
MLS.
yeah. Well, for Ronaldo, who knows? You know, that's always the rumor. He may or may
Right.
not get here, but I think there's some other extenuating circumstances that may keep him
Yeah. Sporting
out.
KC has his discovery rights, so it's gonna be a tough sell for them to get rid of those.
Yeah. Well, money goes a long way.
Yeah.
Money goes a long way. And I think RSL has a Uruguayan that might be on the national team
Yeah,
there.
Sanabria.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's come in and made a huge difference on the left
He
side
has.
for Real Salt Lake. Yeah, it's really exciting. So, I can't thank you enough for
Oh,
joining
thank
us
you.
on
Yeah,
this
yeah.
podcast. It's been really great getting to know you. What would, as a final question, what would you want MLS fans know that we have about you that we haven't talked about?
About me, that's interesting. If you ever see me anywhere, come say hi. This community is what makes MLS a beautiful thing in the sports landscape of the United States. So definitely, if you ever see me at a game, come say hi. I'll always want to see everybody that appreciates everybody that kind of puts work into this grassroots league. So 100% come and say hi. Tell me your name, how you got into it, because I'm always down to talk to MLS fans.
And it just occurred to me, did you work it into your deal with Kickbase that they have to send you to every single MLS stadium to go and spread the word about fantasy
I
soccer?
wish. I know I wish. But yeah, it's kind of funny. I'm definitely gonna go to every stadium. Haven't done it yet, but even if Kickbase doesn't send me, I'll go on my own dime, you know. So that's something that I've always done before.
Well, besides San Jose, is there any a favorite place that you've been? Last question.
Oh, favorite place. That's
Have you
tough
been to Real
because
Salt Lake first, and then
I haven't. I haven't, but
okay,
I heard they had the best view, and I need to get there because they
it
do
is
have the
stunning.
best view. Yeah. Um, but my favorite stadium is tough because that's such a tough question for me. But I think Austin Q2 Stadium, what it means to that city, was such a fun experience. I didn't even go as media. I just went as a fan, and I had a blast. I had a blast when I went.
Well, thank you so much. We love having you on the podcast. Before we leave, where can people find you? Where all
Yeah.
of your articles? Where
Yeah,
can they
yeah,
find
yeah.
you?
Yeah, you can find me at Favian Renkel on all platforms. But most recently, you can find me at Kickbase MLS. So definitely, if you are interested in fantasy, check that out. But yeah, you can find all my articles on any of my profiles, to be honest.
And then look for your magazine that's coming out sometime,
Yeah,
right? So
eventually, right? Eventually.
awesome. Well, thanks so much for joining us.
So thank you, Brent. I appreciate it.